All right, so let's do the assignment then. Okay. This is being posted to the Moodle this morning, I believe. Okay, it's due a month from now, Monday, April 9th. So my homework policies may be different from those of others, so you need to understand mine. You are encouraged to work together with other students to discuss the assignment. So here's the basic model. Get together in groups. Usually groups of about 5 are pretty good. Groups of 10 are unwieldy. Groups of 2 are better than 1. You get together, you have as much discussion as you want. You throw ideas out at each other. Eventually, you choose the best ideas that your group comes up with, probably, right? You may not even agree. Maybe one person thinks this is a good idea, somebody else thinks a different one is a good idea. But then the time comes when you go alone and you write your assignment paper. Okay, you don't write the paper together. You can think, discuss, bounce ideas off each other freely, that's fine. But at some point, you must then write your own paper. Okay? This assignment requires creative thinking. You will do better if you work with others. Why? Because if you have a bad idea, they'll tell you. But if you're working alone, nobody will tell you if you have a bad idea. However, the written paper you turn in must be created completely by you alone. You may not share written work, nor may you copy answers from any source other than your own brain. Now, of course, if you work together on a team, then your answers are going to be very similar to one another, probably. That's fine. But what I'm going to be able to tell is that you expressed those ideas differently from the other person. Maybe the same ideas, but they're expressed differently, so I know you worked independently. Okay? That's how it works. This homework requires more thought than writing. Thought. The question has never appeared on an exam before and requires you to think carefully and plan your answer before you begin writing. So you spend a lot of time thinking and a smaller amount of time writing. You must list on your homework paper the name of every person you worked with. That's so I can do cross-correlation. If your answer includes content from any other source, you must state the source. So if you come up with something from a web page, that's okay. Put it in there, but I have to have a footnote that says what web page it came from. Otherwise, you're misrepresenting it as your own. Okay? Failure to do so is cheating and will result in sanctions, and HKU is serious about this stuff. Copying written answers from someone else is cheating, even if you list their name on the homework. Right? Remember that. You still have to do your own writing. Okay? You will not lose any marks for admitting that you're quoting from another source or that you worked with someone else. It does not reduce your grade. In fact, it's probably going to increase your grade because your work is going to be better. Grading. Homework will not be regraded except in cases of manifest error. Manifest error is my term. A manifest error is one that is immediately apparent on inspection of the paper. So if I add up a score wrong numerically, that's a manifest error. Anybody looking at the paper could tell that the arithmetic is wrong. I will correct that. What I won't do is if you come to me and say, I think I deserved more marks on this question than that. Would you please look at it again? I'm not doing that. Never do that, either here or at CMU. Why? Because what you're telling me is I didn't look carefully the first time, which is not correct. And the second, because I do look carefully the first time. And the second thing is that if I did that, then everybody who didn't get 100 would ask me to regrade, because they might get something higher the second time. So I would have to do at least double the amount of work, and I'm not doing that. Examples: a numerical error in adding up the individual question scores, marking an answer wrong when it's in fact right, or failing to write in a score for an individual question. Homework answers will not be re-examined subjectively to determine whether a question should have received a different number of marks. I don't do that ever. The homework counts for 40% of your grade in the course. The penalty for late submission is mathematically 1/4 of the homework value for each day or fraction the work is late. So be on time. You have a month, so be on time. Homework must be submitted in the form of a Word file, Doc or DocX. PDFs are not acceptable. You should submit through the Moodle. And then what they'll do is they will prepare a zip file for me. They will send it to me in Pittsburgh. and I will unzip it and grade everything. Because you have 4 weeks for the assignment, significant work is expected, most of which is mental. You should start work as soon as possible. You cannot answer this question in a few paragraphs. Do not include drawings from the course slides in your answers. You don't have to show me my slides. I know what my slides look like. Don't put them in your homework. Okay? It doesn't indicate anything to me other than maybe you recognize that a particular slide was relevant, which is not what I'm looking for here. Okay, now for the question. Peer-to-peer octopus. I'm going to read all the words. Octopus, discussed in Lecture 5, is an extremely effective low-value payment system. We all know that. However, it does not allow peer-to-peer payments. That is, directly from one Octopus card to another. So you have an Octopus card. I know that. You have an Octopus card. There's no way you can transfer money from one of your cards to the other right now. Okay? Your assignment is to design a system to permit one holder of an Octopus card to send money to another holder of an Octopus card. And here's my definition of design for the purpose of this assignment. Design means show a block diagram of the functional components, not hardware. I don't care what specific hardware you use. There's going to be a block here that says Octopus Cards Limited. There's going to be another block here that's going to say user's PC. Another block is going to say user's cell phone, something like that. Okay? You have to show the functional components of the system and explain clearly in words what each component will do and how the components will communicate. There's no coding here. Design does not mean write code. Okay? No. Now, before you can do this right, there are 5 issues you have to address. How actually will a peer-to-peer transfer occur? Some people have an Octopus SIM card in their cell phone. Those who do not have one can use their phone as an NFC reader to read a card. I showed you that using the visualizer during Lecture 5. So there are different modes of using the card. Another is you can buy the Octopus PC reader that I showed you, and you can plug it into the USB port of your PC, and you can read an Octopus card that way. So your system has to support all these different modes of use of Octopus. Octopus Watch also. There's also a possibility for remote peer-to-peer transfers. So if you're in your physical presence, you could use the same cell phone, for example. But if you're thousands of miles away and you're not in each other's presence, you can't do that. However, if you each have a cell phone, and your cell phone can read and write your card, and yours can read and write your card, now there's a possibility that you could send money to somebody from around the world. Like I have one, I'll have it with me in Pittsburgh. I could send you money off of my Octopus card if I wanted to. If both parties have cell phones, there's no need for them to be anywhere near each other. If one or both have a PC, they can use a USB reader to read the Octopus cards. What will the user interface look like? Well, okay, think about it. You're remote from somebody, and he's asked you for money. What do you actually do to send him the money? How does your system know that it's going to go to him? What do you do? What do you type? Does he have a name? Is his name associated with his Octopus card? You got to think about what the interface looks like. And you should consider both the cell phone and the PC interface. Hint, they're going to be very similar. Will OCL have to be contacted during the transfer? Or is this going to be like a Coke machine? So if you don't contact OCL during the transfer, then your shadow accounts are going to be wrong. Because money will have moved off your card onto his card, but OCL won't know about it. That's okay, because when you buy a Coke, they don't know about it either. But they eventually find out, because Coke uploads the transactions to OCL, and then the shadow accounts are adjusted. Also, I think I told you, the next time you go into an online reader, like an MTR, your Coke machine transfer gets uploaded to OCL. So they immediately know. But if you don't use your card after the Coke machine, then it's only when the Coke data gets uploaded that it knows. So if I transfer money to him and then I don't use my Octopus card for a month, how are they going to find out that I transferred the money? Okay? Security is a real issue. If there's code on the cell phone that can rewrite an Octopus card, as opposed to just reading one which can be done now. I showed you, you can read one with a PC reader. You can read one with your cell phone. You can't write them. And that's for security reasons. Otherwise, people could maybe do a fake ad fare transaction. There's a possibility that hackers might add value to a card arbitrarily without using money. You know that hypothetically that might be possible, but they're going to get caught soon. We discussed that because the shadow accounts won't balance properly. However, this should be prevented. This meaning unauthorized add value should be prevented, and if it somehow happens, should be detected quickly. Current Octopus readers that have the ability to deduct value from cards, for example in the MTR, and are able to calculate the secret key, sorry, it should not say and, are able to calculate the secret key of a card from the card's serial number. That's how it engages in the authentication protocol. The card sends its serial number, and then the reader figures out what the secret key of the card is. That's proprietary code that does that. If this capability is given to a cell phone, one can imagine that security could be compromised. Maybe, if you all get your heads together, maybe you can figure out a way for cards to be rewritten from a cell phone without having any software in the phone know the secret key calculation algorithm. I think you can. And I want you to try that. Because otherwise, we don't want the secret protocol in code on the phone. Because somebody can hack that. Somebody could download it and figure out, aha, now I know how to calculate the keys of the card, the secret keys of the cards. You don't want that. All right, so here's the question. Well, the question's short now. Design a workable system that addresses each of the above 5 issues. Your answer should have A, a system design, block diagram, an explanation of the process by which users will transfer value, and how the Octopus components, card, reader, OCL computers, PC, cell phone, will accomplish the transfer, and 5 sections, short sections, dealing with how you have addressed the 5 issues. Note, there is no perfect answer to this question. Even when OCL starts permitting this, it probably won't be a perfect solution. You will be judged on how realistic and complete your response is and how much you learned from the course. You do not need to know any more about Octopus than we talked about in the course. If you think you need to know something else, there's no way to find out. Make an assumption and state what your assumption is. And you'll be judged on the reasonableness of your assumption. There's no more secret information required than we talked about in the course. Okay? Questions on the assignment? There'll be a PDF on the Moodle. It may be there already. I don't know. Not yet? It's coming this morning. I've interacted with Sonia on this. Okay? So I'm going to give you an answer you're not going to like. And I always give the same answer. To my CMU students and my HKU students, the same answer. He asked, how long should it be? The answer is the appropriate length. And the reason I say that is if I say it has to be X pages, then if you wanted to write more, you won't. And if you wanted to write less, you'll fill it up with garbage just to keep it at the limit that I set. And I don't want any of that. You have a story to tell. Every design, you have a story to tell to explain it. Stories should be the right length for the story. You don't want more and you don't want less. But everybody's story is going to be different. So I cannot give you a page length. I can tell you that 2 pages will not do it. I'm sure of that. And I know you don't need 50. So somewhere in there. All right. Let us hurtle now quickly to the end of the course. Now there's still some interesting stuff to do. After spending almost an hour and a half on electronic invoice presentment and payment, I'm going to raise the question, are invoices really necessary? Because if they're not necessary, we can dispense with the entire EIPP process and save a tremendous amount of money. And so I'm going to give you an introduction to scan-based trading. This is an amazing concept to me. I'm amazed that the industry ever thought of it. Okay. It all started 20 years ago when the grocery industry was looking at the problem of out of stock. Out of stock is a very simple idea. You go to the store, you want something, it's not on the shelf. It's just not there. Now, out of stock is a really bad thing. It's bad for you because you couldn't buy the item that you wanted. It's bad for the store because they didn't make any profit selling you something they didn't have. If it's bad for them and it's bad for you, there's motivation to fix it. Okay? So, the grocery industry was very interested in why do grocery stores go out of stock on particular items. So they commissioned this expensive study, and they found the following results. That 54% of the time, it was because the store employees were unaware of the out-of-stock condition, and they didn't reorder the goods. How can that be? Well, one reason is that large grocery stores have huge numbers of individual items. Tens of thousands in some cases. Very, very large stores have over 100,000 different items. And to have a person be responsible for knowing what the current inventory level is on each item is very difficult. Yeah, sure, they can walk down the shelf, but you know, people are moving stuff around all the time. It's not like you're going to see this big empty space there, because it will have been filled up with other stuff by people moving things around. 19% of the time, this is the second largest, was bad promotion, forecasting, and ordering. That is, you buy enough stuff that you think will handle the demand for whatever period of time you're ordering for. If you're wrong, and it all sells out in 10 minutes, then you're out of stock. I mean, yes, you got a nice profit off what you sold, but you could have sold a lot more. So if you don't forecast the demand properly, bad things happen. There are many classic examples of this. One of the worst was Target stores. Target stores is a big worldwide chain of kind of not the lowest quality stuff, a little higher quality, but still very good prices. They teamed up with Missoni. So Missoni is a fancy Italian designer of clothing. Very characteristic. Actually, this happens to be a Missoni tie. They use a lot of zigzag stripes in their clothing. Much higher end stuff than you would normally see in a Target store. But they signed a deal, Target and Missoni. Missoni created a lower end line of goods just for Target, exclusive for Target. And they promoted this for months in advance. There were huge posters, Missoni coming, Missoni coming. On the website, Missoni coming, Missoni coming. I got excited because it's very difficult to find stores that actually sell Missoni items. There are just not that many outlets, particularly in Pittsburgh, where I live. In Hong Kong, there used to be. Now there are zero, by the way. All right, so what happens? I'm all excited. I'm there early, the first day of the sale. I go to my local Target. They say, we're completely sold out. I said, huh? You've been promoting this for months. He said, try the website. So I went home. I went on the website. I looked for men's stuff. Unavailable. Gone. Now, why? This. They had no idea, even though they had very good marketing people to market this stuff, they had no idea how successful they were going to be, and they did not order enough goods from Missoni to supply this tremendous demand that they created themselves. So now what happened? They lost a fortune on the sales they couldn't make, and they pissed me off. Okay? I'm never going to go to another one of these Target sale things again, because I was really disappointed after going so many months waiting for this. So it's bad. Shelf capacity inadequate. Every store has finite size. You can only stock a certain amount of all these different things. And if you don't have enough shelf space, then you can't, you don't have a place to put the goods. And then this one's really stupid. Backroom display inventory not restocked to shelf. So 8% of the time, they actually had the stuff in the store, but it was in the back room, and the store personnel didn't know. So when the customer said, do you have any more laser pointers? They looked at the shelf and they said, no, we're out. They didn't check the back room and find out that they really had them. So all of these things are they're just stupid if you could avoid them. Okay? So what's the answer? All right. The answer at the time was vendor-managed inventory. Walmart and Procter & Gamble in the late 1980s insisted that vendors allow this. Campbell Soup, Johnson & Johnson, and Barilla, a pasta maker from Italy, actually the largest pasta maker in the world, joined this vendor-managed inventory program. And here's what the idea is. In vendor-managed inventory, the supplier, the pasta maker, not the store, decides on when to send more stuff. How do they make that decision? By monitoring the inventory levels at the retailer. How do they do that? Well, suppliers send regular inventory reports. You know, when they sell stuff, they have an inventory control system. They reduce the amounts by what they sell, and they communicate that information to the supplier, who knows how much stock he has. He knows how long it takes to ship some stuff from his warehouse to the store, and he decides how much to send and when to send it. Orders that were formally initiated by the retailer are now made by the supplier. They're not orders. See, they used to have to wait until you ordered something. And if you forgot, then it was bad for both of you. You didn't restock and he didn't resell. So instead of waiting for you to send an order, the vendor just ships the stuff and bills you for it. Now, of course, if he makes bad decisions and he sends too much stuff, then you're going to complain and you're going to stop doing business with him. Also, he can't fill up more shelf space than you've got in your store. So he has to work with his customer. Now, you, the store, who are getting stuff from the supplier, what you receive is an advanced shipping notice called an ASN to tell you that this much stuff is on the way, so when it comes, you're ready for it. You've made shelf space for it. You've got your backroom guys who are ready to put it onto the store shelves. So here's a look at the traditional supply chain before VMI. Here's a supplier. The supplier would then ship stuff to your warehouse. At that time, he would bill you, because it's yours now. It's not the supplier's anymore. It's yours. You owe him money. If you never sell it, that's your loss, because you bought it. Okay? Then eventually it goes from the warehouse to the store to replenish the shelves. Then someday a consumer will show up and buy the stuff, and that's when the retailer gets paid. The supplier gets paid when he ships, but the store doesn't get paid maybe till months later when somebody buys the stuff. Okay, that's traditional. Now you would wonder, how could it be any other way? Because when the supplier ships stuff to you, it becomes yours. So you should own it. If you own it, you've got to pay for it. Okay? So there was something else called direct store delivery, which eliminated the warehouse. The warehouse is a pain because it's big, and the stuff that's sitting in there, nobody's buying. It doesn't get bought until it goes to a store. So it's just wasting money sitting here, because you had to pay for it, but you're not getting any revenue while it's in the warehouse. So let's get rid of the warehouse. So in direct store delivery, the supplier ships the stuff directly to the store, which means the amount of time before it's going to get sold is much shorter now, because it doesn't waste time sitting in the warehouse. However, the terms are still the same. The supplier gets paid when he delivers, but the retailer only gets paid when somebody actually buys the goods. Although this time tends to be shorter in DSD than it is in traditional supply chain. Now, in scan-based trading, this is a concept you have to get your head around. The supplier of the goods owns them until they're sold. They're on your shelf in your store, but you don't own them. The supplier owns them. And you and he get paid at the same time. When a customer comes in and buys the goods, the store gets paid. The store immediately then has to pay the supplier for those goods. Of course, he's going to pay less, right? In a typical 100% markup, you sell it for, $1,000, you're going to pay $500 to the supplier. But there's no payment until an actual customer buys the stuff. All the supplier does when he delivers the stuff is he tells you how much he delivered. There's no store check-in. In traditional supply chain, a truck shows up at your loading dock. And there are many, many cartons in there. And the truck driver has a clipboard, and the check-in guy has a clipboard, and they're crossing off things, and they're making sure of the exact quantity of everything delivered. You don't have to do that anymore. The supplier sends the stuff, and he just tells you how much he sent. When the goods are scanned at the point of sale, so you go out to the cashier, and you scan the goods, there's a barcode on there. The barcode uniquely identifies the product. Now we know that was sold. We just collected the money. Now we got to go pay the supplier for that item. Risk of shrinkage. Shrinkage is a euphemism. Usually means theft or fraud. Sometimes it's actual loss due to accidents, like there's a water pipe breaks in the ceiling and ruins some goods. That's a shrink, because it means you have less inventory now than you thought you had. That's what shrink is. Shrink is a difference between notional inventory, what you think you have, and what you actually have. And if a shoplifter comes and walks out with things, that's shrink, because you thought you had 10 items, but you really only have 9, because one got stolen. Those risks are shared between the supplier and the store. Now watch how this works. Okay? Walmart uses this for a lot of its goods. What happens is that at the retailer headquarters, and Walmart's amazing because every Walmart store has a satellite dish, and there's an instantaneous satellite connection between the store and Walmart headquarters in the state of Arkansas in the United States. So every good that's scanned at the store, at the point of sale, every barcode that gets scanned is transmitted to the headquarters of Walmart. So they have a worldwide view instantaneously of exactly how much of everything they have in Walmart stores, except stuff that got stolen. They don't know about that. But anything that got scanned, they know about that. So how does the, hang on a second, I want to show you. I got a map here. It's out of order. Here. This is the map of scan. It's in the slides, but it's in the wrong place. This is what scan-based trading looks like financially. The supplier sends goods to the retailer, but there's no billing. Because the supplier hasn't been paid, he still owns the goods. Even though they're on the store shelf, they're owned by the supplier. The store never owns them. Title is transmitted directly to the consumer who buys them. The supplier owned them. Now the consumer owns them. The store never owned them for even a microsecond. However, when the consumer buys something, there's a scan of the barcode. At that moment, the supplier and the retailer are going to be entitled to revenue. The store gets paid by the consumer. The supplier gets paid by the retailer, usually within a day. Why? Because the supplier is willing to have his goods be on your shelf. He's not willing to have his goods and your money be on your shelf. So as soon as you get the money, you've got to pay him. Now, you might wonder, why would any supplier be so crazy as to ship stuff to a store and not get paid for it? Doesn't that sound strange? It sounds strange to me. Here's why. The grocery manufacturers of America did a study. They found that sales increased by 3 to 4% when scan-based trading was introduced. Why would sales go up? Because there's no out of stock. You don't go out of stock anymore because you can't. What happens is every time an item gets sold, the retailer immediately knows about it. In that day's report on the revenue that he's going to get, you tell him how many items were scanned at point of sale. So he's monitoring. He knows exactly how many you've got left in your store. He doesn't let you go out of stock because he'll lose money and you'll lose money. So total sales went up. If total sales go up, is it good for the store? Yes. Is it good for the supplier? Yes. If it's good for both of them, they're going to do it. So they did it. There was 100% elimination of invoice deductions. I already told you about invoice deductions, right? When there's an invoice and it's wrong, you don't pay it until you reconcile what the error is. You never see a savings of 100% of anything. So how can I stand here and say 100% elimination of invoice deductions? Because there's no invoice. No invoice ever gets sent. The supplier never sends a bill. If he doesn't send a bill, there can't be anything wrong with it. Retailers save $5,000 to $10,000 US per supplier per 100 stores, and suppliers save $4,000 to $20,000 US per 100 stores, largely because of the lack of check-in. When you have a truck driver, the longer time he spends at a store, the less time he's driving, and the less stuff you can deliver. If you don't have the guy wait, he just dumps the stuff off on the loading dock and drives away and goes somewhere else, that it's much less costly to do that. Why can he do that? Because there's no need to check anything, because the store isn't owning the stuff. It's all the supplier's stuff. If the supplier is wrong about how much he sent you, that's his problem. You don't have to pay him until you actually sell it, in which case you know you got paid. So it's actually brilliant. Shrink has been controlled. Shrink used to be 1% to 2%. It went down to 0.3%, and the reason had to do with the sharing of the shrink loss, theft even. The supplier owns the goods, right? You might say, well, why should I care if people steal it? If people steal it, it doesn't cost me anything, right? Well, that's a problem. It's a problem because then all of a sudden the supplier is going to say, I'm not shipping to you anymore because you have not implemented theft controls. So there's a joint responsibility for theft. And so that has reduced shrink tremendously. Okay? That's scan-based trading. Scan-based trading is used almost 100% in the magazine industry. So magazines go to a kiosk on the street and you buy them. And it used to be that what would happen is the unsold ones were returned. They were actually physically taken back by the publisher, and a refund was issued to the magazine kiosk. That was an incredible pain. Now, the magazine kiosk does not buy the magazines. They don't own them. The publisher owns them, and they get paid when they're sold. And Walmart has introduced scan-based trading for a lot of goods. It's not perfect for everything. You don't want to scan-based trade cars. Cars are often custom ordered. Cars sit in the showroom for a very long time. What you want is goods that move regularly, where there's a fast turnover. Scan-based trading is terrific for that. It's not good for very expensive goods that move very slowly. But for many consumer goods, they do move fast. Food. Food doesn't stay in the supermarket for very long. Okay? So I want to give you some major ideas of EIPP before we move on to the future. It's data rich. In order to do effective billing, you have to give bill summaries and you have to keep around a lot of detail about the bills. It's complicated because you have to interact with legacy accounting systems. You have to do data interchange among all these different parties, the biller service providers, the customer service providers, etc. It requires service providers because there's no way you're going to do biller direct for everything. You couldn't stand it as a consumer if you had to visit 50 different websites in order to pay your bills. Are bills necessary? We'll see. In many cases, so there's no billing in scan-based trading. The problem is scan-based trading requires a relationship between the buyer and the seller. So the supplier and the store have a contract. They have a long contract about the scan-based trading terms. What I'm interested in is, could we have scan-based trading for consumers? What would that mean? And scan-based trading for consumers would mean that you walk into a store, you take what you want, and you go. There's no invoicing. The store is going to get paid electronically as you walk out of the store. Is that possible? Yes. It's done in Seattle, Washington now with Amazon Go, and I'll show you that at the end. But before that, I want to talk about instant payment. Why can't everyone benefit from real-time gross settlement? Why not? Well, the central bank doesn't want to have millions of accounts. They only want to have as many accounts as there are banks in their territory. They don't want to give you an individual account. If they did, then we could have instant payment. Right? You want to pay somebody, you send an order to the central bank debits your account and credits their account, just as if you were a bank. It would be great. The problem is that the central bank would be completely swamped because the number of transactions is so high. If every financial transaction in Hong Kong had to go through the HKMA, including an MTR ride, then everything would collapse. All right? So why do we all have to wait to get paid? Even in PayPal, even though PayPal is instantaneous, if you want the real money, you have to ask PayPal for it, and then PayPal takes a few days to get it into your bank account. By the way, remember I deposited 1,000 US in my PayPal? Yesterday I got the email from PayPal that said it had gone through and that my balance was now bumped up by $1,000. So it took a few days. Okay? So if you accept PayPal or Alipay and it's good enough for you and you don't ever have to move it out into cash, then you pretty much have a real-time gross settlement system. You have instant payment. But for the rest of us, a fast payment infrastructure would be needed to get real money out of my account and real money into your account. It would be like instantaneous ACH. It would be ACH without clearing. It would be instant settlement. And a lot of people would like that because time is the enemy of money. So here's how instant payments work, and they actually have been implemented. But here's what's required. You need a consortium of banks that trust each other. You can't do it over the entire world because not every bank in the world trusts every other bank. In Hong Kong, you could do it. So here's the idea. You're the sender of money. You want to pay the receiver of money. Okay? The payee. Sender, receiver. You send a payment instruction to your bank. Your bank looks up your account, makes sure you have that much money, and then they authorize the payment. Obviously, you can't pay money you don't have. Okay? There's a central service provider that validates the payment and authorizes payment to the receiving bank. And the receiving bank then credits the payee's account immediately, even though they don't have the money yet. The reason they're willing to do it is the sending bank and the receiving bank trust each other. And if the sending bank says, we deducted the money from his account, then the receiving bank is perfectly happy crediting the money to the receiver's account right then, at that moment, without a clearing process. There's going to be a clearing process in order to move real money between the banks, but there's no clearing process for the instantaneous payment. Then, the service provider receives the notification of the successful payment. At this point, it's irrevocable, sort of like Fedwire. And then the service provider then confirms to the sending bank that payment has been made and accepted by the receiving bank, and then you receive notification that your payment went through. How long does it take? A few seconds. It's as fast as PayPal. But it depends on this bank and that bank trusting each other. Now, how does the money actually move between the banks? Well, that's a clearing process, right? Even though the money has been credited to their depositor, this bank has not paid the money yet. So all these transactions are going to go to a clearinghouse, and at the end of the day, there will be settlement between banks for the net amounts that they owe each other. So it's easy because money's not moving through the financial system at the moment of the transaction. It's moving only on the books of the two banks, this bank and that bank. No money is actually moving. It's a ledger change. It's like PayPal. Only once a day does the actual financial system and the central bank get involved. So the central bank doesn't know when this transaction is occurring, and they don't care. That's what instant payment is. This is the same thing. The originator of the payment talks to his bank. It sends the transaction to the centralized system, which forwards the transaction to the receiving bank. The receiving bank accepts, sends back the confirmation, and instantly credits the beneficiary's real bank account. It's not like PayPal. PayPal is not your bank account. This is real money. This you can instantaneously transfer to. You can wire it out if you want 1 second later. It's another one. It's just another graphic for the same thing. John wants to send money to Mike. Any Johns out there? I'm Mike. Please send me money. He contacts his bank. His bank introduces the transaction into this infrastructure. Mike's bank, because it's part of the consortium of banks that trust each other, immediately credits Mike's account. And it will get paid, but it won't not till the end of the day. But that's okay. It's willing to credit the amount to its depositor. Now, settlement. So what goes on here is there's a transfer of payment data between payer and payee, but of course there are participating banks, and they have to message each other. And there's a whole bunch of steps where you create the payment order, then there's some messaging that goes on. I apologize for these things shifting back and forth. And then ultimately there's going to have to be an end-of-day settlement. And that occurs because there's a clearinghouse. But the initial time is only 5 seconds for confirmation to get back to the payer that his money has been successfully paid to the payee. Settlement is later. Okay. So Hong Kong is working on something it calls the faster payment system. Faster payment system. The whole idea there is to get money to payees faster. Okay? So there are payers and payees floating around all over here. And what Hong Kong is not exactly telling you is that they really want to implement instant payment. And that's more feasible in Hong Kong than in most places because it's physically small and very heavily financially regulated. So all of the banks could end up in this trust relationship so that as long as you're moving money within Hong Kong, you will be able to make instant payments. I just pulled that from a third-party supplier that's working on this with them. There are no details of it, but basically it's the same concept. Instant payment worldwide. This map is complicated, but by these colors, you can tell how advanced these different countries are with respect to instant payment. So this color, this deepest blue-green here, number 5, if you look at 5s, these are the ones that they have the most features to maximize value. These are the most advanced instant payment countries. Notice if you look over the entire map, there's only one 5, and that's India. Why? You don't think of India as having an advanced banking system, even though they have more banks than any country in the world. The reason is, it's a leapfrog effect. When you're way behind and you decide to modernize, you implement the most modern thing at that time. So you leapfrog over everybody else. Then the next guy who's bad leapfrogs over you, and eventually by this big game of leapfrog, the whole world advances. And so let's look at the number 4s. There are no number 4s in North America or South America. There is in Spain and UK and Denmark, Finland, Poland, Switzerland. Over here, Singapore and Thailand are the number 4s. When you get down to number 3, it says meets most features, okay? Enhancing customer value, not maximizing. So it's pretty good. And then when you get down to the yellows, things are under development. Notice, Canada and the USA, they don't have instant payments. It's under development. A lot of the countries in the EU don't have it. Hong Kong is actually developing it. That's what the faster payment system is. There's an instant payment system for Hong Kong. And Australia is under development. So it's going to happen. In which case, all kinds of things are going to change. The need for clearinghouses for lots of transactions is going to diminish. Because what's going to happen? All the different types of payments that are made between people are going to clear through one clearinghouse and cause one settlement to be made. That's the model that I showed you the other night of the old payment infrastructure versus the modern payment infrastructure. Okay. Are cashiers necessary? Do you know what percentage of the population are cashiers? 1%. In the United States, there are 3.5 million cashiers out of a population of 340 million people. 1% of the population are cashiers. That means that the cost of cashiers is high. Who's paying for all those cashiers? We are, because they're built into the cost of the goods that the merchant sells. So if we could eliminate cashiers, I'm not trying to put people out of work, but it would save a lot of money. Are cashiers necessary? Introduction to seamless shopping. That's the model in which you walk in the store, you take the stuff, and you go home. This actually exists, and people who interviewed after they do it, how did it feel? A lot of people report that they feel it's a lot like shoplifting. Because you can put the stuff in a bag if you want to, but if you want to hide it under your coat, that's okay. You're still going to have to pay for it. And so you carry this bag around, you put stuff in the bag, and you just walk out. You don't go, there's no cashier. You don't check out. You don't have stuff scanned. It's totally wonderful. Okay? So that's Amazon Go. You download the Amazon Go store app to your cell phone. The Amazon Go app, you have to build in payment credentials, like a credit card or something, so that Amazon is going to get paid. Then you open the app as you enter the Amazon Go store, and you take whatever you want. You take it, you can put it back on the shelf, you take it again. But whatever you walk out with, you're going to get billed for, they're going to get paid, and a receipt is sent to your phone so you know that it was accurate. That's it. It's real simple. So they refer to it, Amazon calls it just walk out technology. It automatically detects when products are taken from or returned to the shelves and keeps track of them in a virtual shopping cart. So they're at any moment when you're in the store, they have, it's like a shadow account. They're keeping track of what they think you've got at any moment. And if that happens to be the moment you leave the store, then that's what you get, that's what you have to pay for. Now, they use a lot of technologies together to do this. Machine learning, computer vision, AI, deep learning, and sensor fusion. What sensor fusion means is combining the results of many sensors of different types in order to get an idea of what the consumer has done. So here's a picture of the store. They've got cameras mounted on the ceiling. So these, see the eye of the camera? The cameras are watching everything. And they're watching movements of people, and they're watching your hands, and they're watching when you grab something off a shelf, and they can tell when you picked something and when you didn't pick something. And if you take something and you put it back on the shelf, then they know you don't have it anymore, so you don't get billed for it. It's not like those hotels where, once you take the can of peanuts, even if you don't eat it and you put it back, you still get billed for it. Nah, that's dumb. This is much smarter than that. So you scan, when you walk in the store, you've already started your Amazon Go app. It displays a QR code which is scanned at a turnstile on entry to the store. So you don't get into the store unless you have the Amazon Go app, because otherwise they're not going to get paid for the goods. So this is an example of somebody, she's scanning her things, just walk out. Scanning her stuff on entry. There are all these shelves. The cameras are all over the place up there. And you just walk around, and they have this Amazon Go bag, and you just dump whatever you want into the bag, or you put it in your pocket, it doesn't matter. And these people are walking around with their bags, and then they just walk out. And what happens is there's very complicated images. See all these cameras up here? Very complicated image processing is taking place to determine exactly what people are doing and who's who. And if I take one thing out of my bag and she puts it in her bag, they know about that. Now, this would be trivial if everything had an RFID on it, but they don't. Not every product manufactured in the world has an RFID yet. After Hitachi RFID powder, the day will come when everything has an RFID. Then what you could do is, as somebody walks through the door, you could read all the RFIDs of everything they bought and pay that way. But we're not there yet. So Amazon has to use this very complicated vision technology to try to determine what people have bought. All right. So I'll give you a notion of the major ideas of the course, what I think they are. You may not agree. Settlement requires central banks. Settlement in real money, it's either cash or a central bank. There's no other way. RTGS, to some extent, real-time gross settlement, is available to consumers, sort of, through Alipay or PayPal. As long as you accept that form of money, it really is instant. On the other hand, if you want to get it into your bank account, it's not instant. E-payment security is based on hashing, cryptography, both symmetric and asymmetric, and secure elements in cell phones. Before you took the course, you probably had no idea the level of security that was going on in your cell phone for payment. Stored value and chip cards are of increasing importance. Instant payment is spreading. there's going to be a tipping point where any country that doesn't have it is going to be regarded as so backward that they're just going to have to do it. The United States might be among the last to do it. There are no practical micropayment systems yet. We explain the reason for that is the volume of transactions has to be so high because the amount of money you can charge for a micropayment transaction is so small. Nobody has that. Mobile payments use sophisticated smartphone capabilities. There are over 1,500 cryptocurrencies, and in many situations, invoicing is unnecessary. When you go in a store and you buy something, you get invoiced, right? You go to the cashier individually scans all the stuff, and this strip prints out with all the things you bought with a number on the bottom. That's your bill. That's your invoice. You pay it immediately with a credit card or debit card or Octopus or whatever. But in Amazon, you don't do that. You don't stop. You don't have somebody scan everything. You just walk out. Yeah, you get a receipt, but that's not a bill. You've already paid. Your credit card's already been charged by the time you get that receipt. In scan-based trading, invoicing is completely unnecessary between the supplier and the retailer. No invoicing. So the world of payments and the infrastructure surrounding payments is changing very fast. Course Q&A. Any questions? Questions about the assignment? Questions about Bitcoin? I hope I really justified the statement that it's a chain of title to nothing. Not only is there nothing backing it, but there is no such thing as a Bitcoin. You can own a Bitcoin, but you can't hold a Bitcoin. Your computer can't hold a Bitcoin because there's no representation of a Bitcoin. All that's represented is the fact that you own it. But it itself does not exist. It's an amazing concept. I love it. As a computer scientist, I love it. As an e-payments instructor, it's got all kinds of problems. But conceptually, it was really quite brilliant.